Good morning, folks. It's a beautiful day here in Houston. It's a beautiful day, and that's saying a lot because it's not always a beautiful, it's usually hot, and it's not hot today. Yay! And it's not humid either. It's beautiful. Yeah, don't talk, right? 2 weeks of fall. Yeah, that's right. We have a considerable number of announcements this morning, and this is important because these are all the things that are going on, and I want you to know about them, especially now, right? It's different now than it was before, or it's the same, depending on how you look at things. But it is... That was deep. But it's deeper than you think it was. Our worship associate this morning is the inimitable, it says right here, inimitable Larry Hulbig. Thank you, Larry, for coming this morning. Larry serves our congregation on the Right Relations Policy team, and we thank him for doing that work. It's important work that that team is doing. We have an informal gathering after services where you can go to lunch with folks. We know you all eat. We've seen you do it. If you are interested, we are meeting today around 12:15 at Chipotle, which is on San Felipe, just up from Bering a little bit on the left. You are welcome to come and continue the conversation as you see fit. We'd love to have you. Between lunch bunch and the services, we will have coffee in the gathering place, and we will have conversation, and we hope you will also join us there as well. As if that's not enough, if you are still new around here and interested in knowing more about either Emerson or about Unitarian Universalism, we will be having our New to UU, New to Emerson class today after services. Grab some coffee, head upstairs. It's normally in the library. Because of a scheduling conflict, it's in 204 this week. Even if you're not new around here and you want to know a little bit more about Emerson, please feel free to join us today, and we will welcome to have you. And we have snacks normally. Where's, I can't see. We usually have snacks. Emerson Players, which is our theater group, is back and will have its first production since 2018. Woohoo! Isn't that great? The holiday production is called A Picture Perfect Christmas, a holiday farcical. Is that what that is? A musical farce or a farcical musical, I don't know. And it's originally written and composed by fellow Emersonians. It's fun, it's funny, it's appropriate for all ages, and the running time is an hour and a half. You'll have 2 opportunities to see it here in the sanctuary, completely free of charge, no reservations needed. On Saturday, December 14th at 3:30, there will be a final dress rehearsal that'll be open to the public. And after that, the official performance will be on Sunday, December 15th, in place of our normal services. Sunday, December 15th, you will be able to witness A Picture Perfect Christmas right here in this sanctuary. And I know they've been working very hard on it, so I appreciate all the work that y'all are doing. The production could use one more person backstage. And this is very important. No experience is necessary. The commitment would be evenings the week of December 9th and several hours on obviously the 14th and then the 15th for performances. If you're interested, please see the stage manager Alejandro Posada, who's right here in the almost front row, and directory Hillary Ritz, who's back there in the back row. We would love to have you help us work backstage. Also, on that same day, you know about Emerson has an ESL program, right? One of our marquee things that we do here. Emerson's ESL program will be holding a bake sale at which we will sell baked goods made by the participants in the ESL program. So baked sweets from all over the world, fundraiser, will be held here after the play. So come for the play, and then come get your glucose. It'll be a great afternoon. And lastly, if you are still new around here, but you would like to get to know more about us, or if you would like us to know more about you, there is a yellow card in the pew. Feel free to fill that in and drop it in the basket when we do the offering. And if you are new here today and you were probably given a welcome kit on your way in, those also have the same yellow card in them. So we welcome everybody who's new, and we welcome folks who are just getting going here. And one last announcement, and then we'll turn it over to Artem, who I'm sure is chomping at the bit. Last week, we said that we are asking you, for every year we give money through our collection to different charities who are living out our mission here in Houston. And last week we said we are asking for your input by today, and we are extending that by a couple days. So if you haven't given your input regarding a charity that you think does mission-critical work for Unitarian Universalism, something that aligns with our beliefs and aligns with our culture and aligns with our values, then you have a couple more days to submit that. You can talk to Mark Anderson, who's sitting right here, or you can email us, however you want to do it. But we look forward to your input. And now I welcome Artem to bring us in to the sacred part of our day.
As we gather in community, we look within ourselves and to each other for strength, restoration, and inspiration, so that as we journey together, we catch the spark of the eternal Spirit, and from that spark, we light our chalice flame. Lighting the chalice flame symbolizes to all that the spirit of our congregation is strong, and that our will to transform ourselves and the world is also strong. We light the flame with gratitude. We light the flame in memory of all who have gone before, in honor of all who are here now, and with joy for all who are yet to come. As we light our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle or a chalice of your own. Our chalice lighting words this month are from John A. Shedd. Mr. Shedd was an American author most well known for his 1928 book of anecdotes, Salt in My Attic. His words have been misattributed to a great number of people, including Albert Einstein and U.S. Rear Admiral Grace Berry Hopper. As we work to create a beloved community, we welcome all who would join us in building a better world with more love, more justice, and more peace. We welcome all who would join us in growing in mind, heart, and spirit. We welcome all who would join us in tearing down systems of oppression. We welcome all who would join their purposes to ours in a loving spirit of right relationship. Please join me in our welcoming. The words are on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself in your life's journeys, whichever your pronouns, whether you walked in, rolled in, or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now we have our presentation of This Week in Unitarian Universalist History with Richard Cummins.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning. For the week of November 18th through the 24th, I've selected a few notable events from this wonderful book, 600 Years of UU History by Frank Schulman. Let's start with the 18th of November. In 1861, the Unitarian Julia Ward Howe wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic at the specific request of President Abraham Lincoln. Many of the Union forces adopted it as a marching song in the Civil War, but it soon gained nationwide popularity. American troops sang it in the Spanish-American War, World War I, and World War II. On that same day in 2003, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court issued its decision in the case of Goodridge versus the Department of Public Health of Massachusetts. The court held that under the Constitution of Massachusetts, it is illegal to deny to people of the same gender the same marriage rights granted to people of different genders. The primary plaintiffs were Hillary and Julie Goodridge. Of the 14 plaintiffs, 7 were Unitarian Universalists, including Hillary. The Unitarian Universalist Association and the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association of the Massachusetts Bay District filed amicus curiae briefs in the case. And on the 20th, in 1850, Charlotte Garrigue Masaryk was born in Brooklyn, my hometown. Her family belonged to the First Unitarian Church of Brooklyn. Masaryk spent some time in Germany studying piano. Friends there told her about Thomas Masaryk, whom she married in 1878. The couple moved to Prague, Czechoslovakia, where Thomas fought for his country's independence and Charlotte devoted her time to social problems. Thomas became the first president of Czechoslovakia, elected in 1920 and again in 2734. And lastly, this is an item that Pat Smith read in the adult RE session at 10 o'clock. And it was on this day in 1859 that Charles Darwin, a Unitarian, published The Origin of Species, setting forth radical ideas that challenged biblical literalists. And that was This Week in UU History. To you, Reverend Ed.
Challenging liberalists, what did you say? Challenging liberal literalists for 200 years. That's what we are, right? Yes. Troublemakers. Each time we are gathered, we hear the words from one of our 6 sources. Today we hear the words from Volume 84, Issue 2 of the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, which I know sounds dreadful, but just hang with me. The article this is the abstract from a 2003 article entitled Counting Blessings versus Burdens, an experimental investigation of gratitude and subjective well-being in daily life. It's by Professor Robert Emmons of the University of California, Davis, and Professor Michael McCulloch from the University of Miami. Here is their summary of their 9-week study involving 200 people. The effect of grateful outlook on psychological and physical well-being was examined. Participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 experimental conditions: hassles, gratitude listing, or something neutral. They kept their records of their moods, coping behaviors, health behaviors, physical symptoms, and overall life appraisals. The gratitude outlook group exhibited heightened well-being across several, although not all, of the outcomes measured relative to the comparison groups. The effect on positive effect appeared to be the most robust finding. Results suggest that a conscious focus on blessings may have an emotional and interpersonal benefits. So there it is, scientifically proven. And now, with our chalices lit and our hearts and our minds centered, I invite you to help us sing our opening hymn. It is in the gray hymnal. The words will be on the screen. It is number 347. Gather the Spirit. You may stand or you may stay seated as you see fit. It is at this point in our service where we normally have a children's story, where we retell the mission of the service. But today we have a special presentation from and by and including our outreach committee, as you know, has been working very hard to determine how best to live out our mission in the greater Houston area. So I invite the group here And Janet, oh, Janet gets the flowers. There you go, Janet. And you get the microphone. Very good.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to introduce the Outreach Committee. I'm Mark Anderson, Janet Dawson. I'm going to say that. We'll get to Bethany. The Outreach Committee has two functions. One is to take in nominations and manage the Share the Plate every week, which we've been doing. The other is to give a grant to a charitable organization from the endowment. The board makes a decision every year of how much to withdraw, and then it's turned over to the Outreach Committee to decide who gets it. This year, the Outreach Committee was given an endowment of $10,000 to grant to a charitable organization. $10,000. $10,000. The funds are used to promote Unitarian Universalist principles and promote visibility for Emerson in the wider community. This year we've chosen the Women's Home. The Women's Home has served the Houston community for 70 years, helping women gain stability in their lives and learning and practicing job skills. The committee toured their Montrose area campus, and its chapel struck us with its serenity, but also with its need for updating. This is how we've decided to use the $10,000 grant, is to update the chapel at the Montrose campus of the Women's Home. Sorry, I'm having trouble with, I've got too many things in my hand. As soon as we walked into the chapel, all three of us felt its serenity, felt that this was the place that we as a religious community could have an impact on this community at the Women's Home. The work, our decision to support this project was unanimous within the committee. The work on the chapel is expected to be completed in the first quarter of 2025. Thank you. Now that I'm almost finished. Thank you, Ariel. The chapel is expected to be completed in the first quarter of 2025, and at that time we will have a dedication ceremony. Reverend Ed has agreed to go and do a blessing during that ceremony, and Emerson will provide the Women's Home with a plaque that commemorates our role in updating this space. Bethany Fields is the Vice President of Grants and Evaluation, and she's here to receive this grant from us today. Bethany?
Thank you, Mark. I feel a little bit like Miss America with the flowers and the check. But just wanted to extend our gratitude. We have partnered with Emerson through the years through your Share the Plate program, and we have some amazing volunteers sitting in the front row who've been part of our board and our organization. And we are just so grateful, especially during this season of giving, that you would choose us for this honor, and that we're going to be able to make an impact on the chapel, which is a very special space in our organization. So just wanted to say thank you. We are honored, privileged, and just appreciate your continued support.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you to everybody on the Outreach Committee. I know the amount of work they did to choose this as their project. So I just want to be clear to you that a lot of work went into this, and this is a very worthwhile project that we think we can have a very large and direct impact in. So thank you very much for all of your work. And I know that two of the committee members are cycling off, or all three of you are? All three of you are. So you have big shoes to fill. I now invite the inimitable Larry Hulbig to bring us into our offertory.
Emerson collects an offering each week, like many other communities of faith, but our offering is not for our church, which is supported by the annual pledges of our members. We collect our Sunday offering to give to others because we know that giving is both a transformative spiritual act and an important way to live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to our November's Share the Plate recipient, Plan It Forward. Planet Forward offers economically disadvantaged refugees an opportunity to become self-sufficient through growing, harvesting, and selling organic produce. The organization secures land, trains and mentors farmers, and facilitates sales to local markets. After a year of training in gardening, as well as business practices, each farmer is loaned land for their own urban farm to sell under Planet Forward brand. Planet Forward facilitates 22 locations and creates markets for the farmers' produce. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to your webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering basket, or mail a check to the church. During the offering music, children who want to attend the RE class may follow their teachers to the classrooms.
I invite you all now to give yourself the luxury, give yourself the gift of just sitting and being one with yourself, one with the pew upon which you are sitting, and one with everything greater than you. Try during this moment, as you may, to allow your mind to not work. Allow yourself to not think about anything. Be at peace with yourself. Be at peace with your body. Be at peace with the world.
The words for our second reading today come from American author Toni Morrison. Ms. Morrison lived her whole life in the United States, her life ending just recently in 2019. Here these words are taken from her 1981 novel, Tar Baby. At some point in life, the world's beauty becomes enough. You don't need to photograph, paint, or even remember it. It is enough. No record of it needs to be kept, and you don't need someone to share it with or tell it to. When that happens, that letting go, you let it go because you can.
So, this service was scheduled to be all about gratitude because it's Thanksgiving, and that's what you preach about on Thanksgiving. I had a very nice service that I'd done years ago on gratitude. That was quite good, actually, if I don't say so myself. And then on Thursday or Friday, I thought to myself, I don't know why I thought to myself, I said, this is not what we need right now. We don't need this right now because we don't need a generic Thanksgiving, although quite good, generic Thanksgiving sermon. We now are existing in between this space. There's a space, if you can imagine, one ball, and that ball is pain, and on the other side is joy. The space in between pain and joy is ambiguity and uncertainty. And a lot of us are living in that space between pain and joy. Some of us are still in the pain bubble, moving into the ambiguity. Some of us are still, I've already moved in to that space. And we feel that we are all preparing for the unknown. And we are wondering, how do you prepare for the unpreparable? How do you do it? And I realize this week, many of you are going to be going to places where you may need to talk with people who are in the joyous bubble. And that is a source of concern for a lot of you. We find ourselves here again in this space of people on both sides. We've been here in the same space over and over and over again. J. Edgar Hoover, McCarthyism, the Salem witch trials, and that took 15 seconds to come up with those three. And I'm sure you could add more. The Cold War, you could add a lot more. No nukes, you could add a lot more. We humans have a long history of treating the symptom while ignoring the problem. And then I remembered this thing that I'd seen before a long time ago, and I wanted to play it for you on the screen. But honestly, the video quality wasn't so great, and the sound quality wasn't so great. And the person who delivered it speaks with an English accent. So I just thought it was going to be hard to really understand. So instead of playing the video, I'm going to read it to you. It's written by a guy named John Cleese, who you know, apparently. Okay. Oh, okay. A member of Monty Python? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. There you go. So John was born in just to give you context, John was born in 1947, and he wrote this in 1987. And it is going to sound like he wrote it today. He wrote it with a target audience being British not American. And some of the references are dated and some of the things have changed, but the underlying message seems to persist. So here is John Cleese's words, which I think you will find useful even today. Seriously, though, we've heard a lot about extremism recently. A nastier, harsher atmosphere everywhere. More abuse, more bothersome behavior, less friendliness, and less tolerance, and less respect for parents. All right, but what we never hear about extremism is its advantages. Well, the biggest advantage of extremism is that it makes you feel good because it provides you with enemies. Let me explain. The great thing about having enemies is that you can pretend that all the badness in the whole world is in your enemies, and all the goodness in the whole world is in you. Attractive, isn't it? So, if you have a lot of anger and resentment in you anyway, and you therefore enjoy abusing people, then you can pretend that you're only doing it because those enemies of yours are such very bad persons. And that if that wasn't for them, and if it wasn't for them, you'd actually be a good-natured, courteous, and rational person all the time. So if you want to feel good, become an extremist. Okay, now you have a choice. If you join the hard left, they'll give you their list of enemies. Almost all kinds of authority, especially the police, the city, Americans, judges, multinational corporations, public schools, various newspaper owners, fox hunters, generals, class traders, and of course, moderates. Or, if you'd rather be an extremist on the hard right, no problem. You will get a list of lovely enemies, and they're only different ones. So, noisy minority groups, unions, Russia, weirdos, demonstrators, welfare spongers, meddlesome clergy, beatniks, the BBC, strikers, social workers, communists, and of course, moderates. Now, once you're armed with one of these super lists of enemies, you can be as nasty as you like to be, and yet feel your behaviors morally justified. So you can strut around using people and telling them that you could eat them for breakfast and still think of yourself as a champion of the truth, a fighter for the greater good, and are the rather sad paranoids, not the rather sad paranoid schizoid that you actually are. John Cleese, he could have written this last week, couldn't he have? Right? And I think he could have written it in 1937. And I think he could have written it in 1914. And I think he could have written it in 1895. And certainly could have written it in 1865. He could have written it just about any old time. So what does that tell you? You're marching off into battle here, folks. Sometimes, some of the dinners that you'll be going to, you'll be able to just avoid it, right? And some you won't. So what I'd like to do is divide you into two groups, and I'd like to talk to you as independently as two groups. The first group is those of you who are exhausted and can't deal. And the second group is those of you who are exhausted but are willing to deal. For the exhausted and can't deal group, here is my advice to you. Please take it as you see fit. I advise you to know where your boundaries are. I get it. There are some people that I could launch a hand grenade at that I love. Just know where your boundaries are. And the other thing I would tell you is to keep your boundaries. Don't let yourself get dragged past your own boundaries. Be ready with other discussion topics. That's a real big one. How about them Red Sox? Be ready to talk about something else. And then if you need to, leave. Get up and leave. You can always go to Luby's. Am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry, I don't know the place. I just see it as I drive by. Now, that can be difficult if the party's at your house. But you have other rooms, don't you? Just go into one of them long enough for someone to say, hey, has anyone seen so-and-so? It's not okay for someone to decide what you will and won't do. You are a sovereign being just like them. Act like it. For those of you who are exhausted and can't deal, I'd like to read these words from a friend of mine, the Reverend Jay Wolin. He wrote it just this week. He wrote it for people like you. He's the minister in Sarasota, Florida, which is a wonderful congregation over there in Florida, and was just wiped out by the storm. It was a real mess. So you need to know that because he's talking on multiple levels here to his congregation. So I pray this for all of you who are exhausted and can't deal. We are here in this liminal time, we are told. It will never be the same. Do not hope for normal. There will have to be a new normal. I don't even know what that means. I can't even imagine what that will look like. As you are falling, you don't ask yourself, I wonder what it'll look like when I hit the bottom. You just plummet until you hit something solid. And then we'll figure out a way forward. There is no escape or denying the reality that we find ourselves in. There is just going through, step by step, knowing we are not alone as we search, struggle, and stretch to find what is possible. Something has to change. Something has to give. Something has to open. A door open to step through. A light shining to guide us, a vision awakened as we remain open to how we will evolve and how the world will unfold and how we search together. Let us remember those upon whom our foundation is built, those that are still with us building, and those who are still to come. Let us be a presence to the past, to the present, and whatever the future holds. Those are the words of my friend Jay Wolin. Changing gears. To those of you who are exhausted and willing to deal, thank you. I wish you well. I wish you strength. I would like to give you some advice. Don't try to fix anyone. Now, that's not advice necessarily for Thanksgiving. That's advice, period. But specifically for this week, don't try to fix, don't try to convince, and please, don't try to guilt anyone. Anger consumes, grief broadens, nourishes, and leads to change. Folks, we live in a post-truth world. It's not that there is no truth. That hasn't changed. It's that we don't rely on it quite as much as we once did. We have always, most of us in our lives, have had truth as an anchoring point for decisions and relationships. Even when we disagreed with people, we always had truth between us. We don't have that anymore. So don't rely on it. Don't rely on the truth. The truth is not the point. Facts have not worked, and they're not going to magically start working on Thanksgiving, especially if your Uncle so-and-so has a couple beers. Make them argue with you, not the facts. Any statement that starts with "I feel" cannot be argued with. As long as it really sticks to feelings. Now, you can't say, "I feel like you're an idiot." That's not an "I feel" statement, right? So you don't wiggle around that. Stick with true "I feel" statements. I feel very worried about people who are on a fixed income. I feel very worried about people who need to have the Affordable Care Act. I feel very worried about U.S. citizens being deported. Don't argue the point. Stick with your feelings. And if it comes down to it, hopefully it will come down to it. What you're trying to do is you're trying to personalize this for them. Because the facts ain't going to fix anything. We've already tried that. If it comes to personalization, the thing you can say to them is, let me ask you, are you okay with me being worried sick over this? That's what we can't do anymore, folks. We can't talk to each other anymore. The current philosopher, still alive, very arguably liked by Unitarians and disliked by Unitarians, a guy named Sam Harris, who many of you have heard of, says this. He says, we live in a perpetual choice between conversation and violence. Think about that for a minute. We live in a perpetual choice between conversation and violence. Put it another way, we live in a perpetual choice between persuasion and coercion. Put it a UU way, we live in a perpetual choice between power over and power with. You are a UU. And the longer you are a UU, the more true this is going to be for you. The dissonance between culture and our values is mind-blocking. You can't think through it. The longer you've been a UU, the louder that dissonance is. Do you feel left out of the United States paradigm? And I say the United States in paradigm because there are other paradigms, right? So there's Costa Rica's in America, Brazil's in America. You can't say that. Canada's in America. The United States in dream, the United States in paradigm. Even before this election, do you feel left out of it? Do you feel like it's not listening to you? Good. You should. UU values are and should be in conflict with what it means to be here now in this country in 2024. If you're hearing that dissonance, good for you. What's going on out there should not make any sense to you. It's okay if it doesn't. You live in a world where cooperation has 100% been replaced with dominance. You live in a world where persuasion has been 100% replaced by coercion. I've even witnessed you coercioning, that's not a word, but you using coercion in this church with each other. That's how pervasive it is in American culture. It's becoming so normal that we can't even see it sometimes when it's here. You and I, we are Unitarian Universalists. And we're not the only ones. To Lissa Wolf's point, that there are the other groups of people who feel the same way. There are other people who feel the same dissonance that we feel. We are not alone, and that is a good thing to know. But we, I think, hold the seed of what this United States in dream was, or what it is. If we're holding a seed, folks, then it's still here. So when you go off to Thanksgiving, remember that. Remember that what you're doing in that conversation is trying to remind people who may think of things differently than you do that that doesn't mean that you're wrong. And that dissonance, you have to make it louder. Otherwise, if the dissonance goes away, the only thing worse than the dissonance is if there weren't any dissonance, if there was nothing rubbing up against what has become the American message. So I wish you the best as you go into this week. I know from talking to you that some of you are tense about it. Don't argue the facts. Argue you. Make it personal. And that's how, that making it personal, that's how we'll begin to break down the atomization of this culture that we suffer through right now. So I wish you well. I love you. I give you peace. And I'll tell you, I'm going to be eating Thanksgiving all by myself. So I don't have the argument that you have, and I don't have that. So you are the soldiers. I wish you well as you march off to try to correct what has been ravaging our culture for 50, 60 years. Peace be among you and peace be with you. Amen. And I now invite you to stand up and help us sing as you wish our second hymn, our closing hymn. The words will be on your screen. Feel free to be seated. Each time we come together in this lovely place we call our spiritual home, we move. We move with the words we hear. We move with the music we hear. We move with the light of the chalice, which, like us, flickers and flutters from side to side while remaining tethered to its source. We extinguish this chalice now. I invite Margie to come forward and extinguish our chalice. We extinguish our chalice not as a symbolic ritual, but as a practical ritual. We do this because the flickering, fluttering light of our congregation is carried with us, each of us, here present, those not present today, those who have left this community long ago, never to return, and those who have yet to arrive. We are so grateful for all of your presence this morning. For those of you who have joined us on YouTube, hello. I'm sorry I forgot to say hello to you earlier, but thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. You are a blessing to us all by your presence, and we love having you. After the postlude, we will terminate our feed to Facebook, but we enjoin you to please stay connected with the community here, and please be a member of this congregation that we love so much. May we, in the course of our week to come, be able to feel the liberating freedom that this religious path we share brings us. May our gods welcome us. May they challenge us to live up to our own expectations of ourselves wherever and whatever they are, and may the world around us light up so that we may see our way back to clarity and wholeness. Amen. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody.